Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, one of the most amazing things is to think about that you are 100% in control of your ability to be able to strengthen your mindset and to develop your character.
Yes, sir.
And this is really important because if you're starting to think about what's actually happening, we're seeing a weakness in society. Now, I'm going to give you some stats here that are pretty interesting. But they're saying that global reading rates are dropping through the floor over the last 15 years.
Yep.
The average Australian consumer is circa 1 hour and 50 minutes a day on social. And what they're actually watching is video content. And so now what they're doing is they're being entertained by the algorithm. And the algorithm, by the way, is not being served to them. The algorithm has been chosen by them without them having knowledge.
Correct.
And then in addition to that, what's actually happening is this weak mindset is actually being reinforced over and over and over again, that there's no strength that comes from adversity, that comes from failure, that comes from not making it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're served a series of content that aligns with that poor thinking. And so therefore you're trapped in a vortex that goes over and over and over again. And without the development of one's mindset and one's character, there is no way that you're ever going to be able to achieve a high level of excellence.
Well, no surprise though, those new laws come out on December 1st for kids under 16 with social.
So,
you know what? Because I was looking at some motivational quotes for our team meeting, right? Now all of a sudden I'm getting all these things like, it's okay. It's just one day at a time. I'm like, hang on, am I okay? What the hell is going on here? I'm getting literally all these quotes.
So I'm doing a test at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I know this is a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
But I rang up.
Nothing's bizarre with you, Josh.
I said, mate, well, what I'm going to do is over the course of the next 3 days, every day, I'm going to search for rainbows. I'm going to pull up 3 different pieces of posts, and I'm going to like them.
Oh.
And every day I'm going to search for puppies, and I'm going to bring up 3 posts and I'm going to like them. And then in my messages, I'm going to message him every day about rainbows
and puppies.
And we want to see how quick his algorithm changes or how quickly mine does.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible.
So when you saw me typing in rainbows,
I was like, it's okay, mate, whatever.
But we're testing it, right?
Yeah, right.
And so it's kind of interesting. So what you accept is your standard.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, the person who's struggling to do 20 transactions a year versus the person who does 200 transactions a year, the one who's struggling to do 20 has practically no standards, very flexy. Oh, yeah, you don't want to do it on market. Oh,
it's too early to make that call.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt them.
I know, auction, no, if you just want it. And so versus the person who's at 200 understands where they need to be flexible and also understands influence.
Yeah.
But they've got a really clear set of standards about what they actually do and how they go to transact.
And a very clear set of awareness tools as well to be able to work out where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are.
And this was really shown to me. A friend of mine bought through Alexander Phillips. And when he did that, he got the buyer email about the contract, but it actually said, you need to get the contract reviewed by your solicitor. If you're going to be proceeding, it must be on a 66W. If you're outside of auction conditions, you'll need to make your 10% deposit payable to this account. It was a check back then. Next conversation, if you want to buy a copy of the Person Building Report, here is the link to it. You must keep us informed at all times as to your level of interest, as properties can sell in an instant, and we don't want you to miss out.
Yeah.
Just the urgency and clarity about this is the way that we got to play the game.
Yeah.
And it just really got me to start to think about that, you've got to do this thing to start being really clear about what it is that you want. Now, I'm going to challenge you about this idea about what would it be like to spend the first hour of every day on actually building an unshakable mindset.
You don't need to challenge me. I completely agree.
So exercise, walking,
mate, no device.
Writing,
for me, I'd roll over and I'd just check my phone. There's just shit on my phone. There's a news story. No news is positive.
Yes.
Then there's social. There's a comment or a chat or a message.
Yeah.
There's a text message. There's an email. Who wants to look at a freaking email at 5 a.m. in the morning?
Yes.
So now I've got my phone as my alarm. It's still next to my bed.
Yes.
But what I do is I'm very acutely aware when I wake up. No phone.
Yes.
Go downstairs, brush my teeth, all that type of stuff, and go straight into my gym.
Yes.
That's it. That's my first hour, so I can make sure that I can set the tone and the pace for the rest of the day.
So if you think about committing to routines that a future you will thank you for, can you give me an example of maybe one or two routines, either at a business level or at a personal level, that have served you really well?
Yeah, so business level really is having coaches and mentors that can help me basically clear the path of not making repeated mistakes. So, for example, John McGrath always talks about the potholes. If you drive out of your driveway every day and you go over a pothole every day, at what point do you make a decision to avoid the pothole or to repair the pothole? So I'm a big believer in coaching and mentoring in business, and that includes myself personally, and obviously investing in, my ability to be able to become better as a better coach, a better leader, a better person. On a personal level, I'm now 46 years old, so I'm very acutely aware of, I want to play the longevity game. So I want to be here, not necessarily for the longest period of time, but for the period of time that I get to be here, I want to be in the best physical and mental shape. So I'm taking, I'm educating myself on what I need to do. I'm putting things into practice. By the way, I'm far from perfect. But I'm also aware that I have these flaws, and my personal belief system is we're all personally flawed. But if you're not doing something to be able to help yourself move forward, why are you laughing at me? You're right. I'm perfectly flawed. He started laughing. Listen to that. Okay, so I think a routine is something that you got to practice, and you got to adjust and measure. You got to test it, adjust it, measure it to make sure that it fits you. But realistically, you know which routines serve you and which ones don't.
So for me, I think that the most important routine that's interesting is that we actually plan the entire year, 18 months out. So you already know what's going to be happening in 2026. And you know where the good periods are going to be and where it's going to get lumpy. So conversations like April next year, with Easter being very early. Then all of a sudden you got Anzac Day on a Saturday. And then you got Monday as an observed public holiday. That's going to be hellfire for a lot of real estate agents.
Correct.
So one of the things, it's a winning routine for us to plan that far ahead so we don't get surprised. And if I think about a personal routine, one thing that I've worked out is early to bed, early to rise keeps you healthy, wealthy, and wise. And so I go to bed early and I wake up early, and I like to spend the first hour of every day about renewing and building that energy and getting clarity for Josh. And I know that sounds funny.
How do you do that?
Well, I get up in the morning, I run, I go straight down to my PT. I work with him when I'm here in Sydney, or if I'm in Melbourne, I run down to the gym and I go and do my own training there. And I really follow that routine, because I worked out that every hour after that, people are going to be coming at you and buying and wanting and taking that energy.
It's like a battery pack, right? So you're at 100%, and then people are taking that. So if you
can renew.
Yes, of course you can.
So this is about the quality of your food and the diet and the exercise, and also to the breathing things and the little things that you do during the course of the day to replenish that energy, to go to reset.
I find it as well, though, Josh, is the content that you consume too.
Well, there's no doubt on that.
Right. So you get all those elements right. But if you're also just listening to junk or watching junk or, scrolling, doom scrolling, you're going to get I get caught in vortexes. And then you go, what the hell am I dodoing here? I'm not moving forward. It's actually depleting my energy reserves.
So the skill is to cut the clutter.
Yes.
Because it's not helping you. And so, I always say to people, hey, look, you've got probably a couple of voices in your head.
I've got 15, right?
No need to show off. But the basic foundational idea is that when you consider that, if you talk to you more than anyone else, then you reinforce the situation. So let me give you some examples. I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm this, I'm that.
I'm not good enough.
I could never do that. Oh, geez, I could never list a house over $1 million. Whatever those things are. But I'm not saying being delusional, but say, hey, what would it take?
Yeah.
Or I'm not good at listing yet. And changing that word yet, or saying what would it take, or how would we do that, do you think, and getting advice.
What would I need to do, and who would I need to become, those type
good mentorship type stuff, right? And it's really about learning how to go to sharpen the mind. And, my mum, always said to me, she said, Josh, the greatest quality in any human being is someone who's got a beautiful mind. So I'm thinking, okay, great. Well, how do I read for that level of mastery? How do I have conversations with people that really push me? How do I get myself into projects that really push my level of energy and momentum to be where they need to be? And it's kind of interesting, because when we did the work with Dr. Edward Hallowell, the preeminent researcher on ADD and ADHD, he said, with that Ferrari engine for a brain that you've got there, your job is to make sure that you can get the appropriate brake specialists in your life, people who can prevent you from spinning wildly and spectacularly out of control.
I like that.
And if you think about that, the brain specialist is the person who gets you recommitted back to the plan. It's the person who says, hey, Con, that's not good for you.
Yes.
You should be focusing on this.
Yes.
And then the next part about it is that then having some things that if you find yourself instantly not well or negative, then how do I change to being back more positive? And so if you think about that, the PTO or positive task orientation, going for a walk, getting some sunshine, having a coffee, high-fiving your best friend, listening to a piece of music, you need to be able to do those things at speed. Now, what he would say is that, and it's kind of interesting when you look at Schwartz's work on energy management, that if physical energy is the quantity of your energy, then emotions are the quality of that energy.
Yeah, right.
So you can have a lot of energy, but if you're negative, then it will burn and fizzle in seconds because literally it just doesn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be very, very careful that if you find yourself into this negative spiral about behaviors and thoughts and beliefs and situations and something keeps pulling you down, call it out and say, hey, this is not right. I need you to know I'm not going to spend more than 24 hours on fixing this.
Yep.
So you've got to work with me to get a resolve, else we're actually out.
Yep.
Because I'm not going to let you take 5 or 6 months of my life in this thing not being resolved.
Yeah,
and I know that sounds easier than harder, but what he's really getting at is that this whole idea is that how do we get in a position that you've got proper renewal exercises? So renewal is reading over your list of achievements for the year. Renewal is reading over your list of goals of what you want to go after. Renewal is making sure that you write out the lesson when you learn it.
Right.
And so then you don't have to keep on reliving it.
Yes.
And I think that that's the whole conversation, is to really realize that to reduce exhaustion, you got to increase the focus. Because what exhaustion is about is that literally maybe you're creating all this energy expenditure about something that may happen in the future.
Yep.
And the easiest way to do it is to bring it back to what can I do today?
Yeah.
What can I do in the next hour?
Yep.
What can I do as opposed to that particular situation that's happening?
Totally get it.
So what they say is that the skill set is to bring the future timeline closer to actually learn how to go to reduce that anxiety.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
I always remember this about what does the sale go to mean for the customer, and I'll keep the customer's name quiet, but I was in a situation one day. I was selling a property for someone, and it was a 3-story house, and they'd been there for a long period of time, and beautiful couple, but unfortunately the gentleman had gone through some very significant strokes, and the problem with that was that he had changed who he was as a person. Right. And so she had not yet revealed that yet, but she was planning that once they had sold the property, he would need to go into care because she just couldn't look after him anymore. And it's not that she didn't love him, but she just didn't have the energy to do 24/7 care.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so she said, okay, great, we're going to sell the house. So we got to this point and everything was there and we're ready to do the transaction. We got a great offer on the home and ready to close it. And he all of a sudden becomes really firm and isn't moving. And that's a problem because he can't walk up and down the stairs. There's a whole range of these issues. Anyway, cutting to the chase, I realized that he had this beautiful vintage Mercedes-Benz and he wasn't able to drive anyway, but I'd often see him looking at it. And I twigged at this point and I said to his wife, I said, has he actually seen the assisted care apartment that he's going to go and live in? She's like, no, he's never seen that. I said, well, can we take him down to the property? She said, yeah, okay. So we took him down to the property and he walks through the door and I'm there with them and he looks out and there's this beautiful window that looks at this car park right next to his apartment. Right. And she says, oh, what's that? And they say, well, that's where you can park the car. He says, oh, can my Mercedes go there? And I said, yep. He goes, I'm moving now. And what it was about is that he had this notion in his brain that the reason that he was living was to get well enough to drive that car again.
Yeah.
And this is that whole key thing is that I've never ever forgotten that you're thinking that it's the $5,000 or $10,000 in bringing the deal together.
Yeah.
When in fact it's actually there's something else that is represented inside of that sale. So just don't be too transactional. Not everything's happy. There's lots of things that people are going through, and your job is to try to facilitate.
Yeah,
that.
I totally agree. I think one of the things that I've experienced recently is that when you detach yourself from an outcome,
yes.
i.e., there's a fee at the end of that sale, that's where I think a lot of that magic happens.
Yes.
We recently did a fairly large sale, a record sale for our group, a record sale for our region, and that was a great experience. It was off market and it was quite a high value client. And the interesting thing is because we did such a great job of not attaching ourselves to an outcome that suited us, that actually helped both the buyer and the seller, we've been rewarded, surprise, with the next listing, which is twice the price of that. Mm-hmm. So I think there's something in there when kind of mirroring what you just said. There's always something going on behind someone's eyes, but our job is really to be a problem solver, but also make sure that we care, but not care so much about ourselves.
Something that's changing your view.
I heard this statement the other day, and I think kind of has the chance to haunt both of us, but the algorithm has exposed you.
How so?
So think about this. When you start a brand new account on like Spotify.
Yep.
Hey, what do you like?
Yes.
And so now you're like, oh, Bryan Adams, or no, I'm over here on Lenny Kravitz, or no, I'm here on this EDM thing, or I'm country, or whatever. It's learning everything about you.
Yeah.
To then start serving you what you want.
Yeah.
Social's the same.
Yeah, it is. I just got DJ Spotify, and it's got all my music.
Yes.
And it blends it into, it's an AI bot that actually mixes it in.
Yes.
I'm like, this is unbelievable. I love all this stuff.
But now think on social.
Yeah.
That what's coming up on that search page, or what's coming up on the Discover page, or the ads that are being served to you, you've actually chosen that.
That's scary.
And so from that point of view, if you want to start thinking about dominating the decade, it's time to strengthen mindset and to really build character.